Good morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and today we're back. We're back. No, not we're back. We're here with episode one of Author's Purpose, and we're going to do an interview with the amazing J.E. Glass, who wrote the book Underground in the title. So, tell us about yourself.
Hey there, thank you for having me. What can I tell about myself? I am just your standard 30-something-year-old writer, living the dream, working full-time and writing in the in-betweens. Little bit of a nerd in the background. I do a lot of prop making as a side job, but I definitely want my writing to hit that stratosphere peak and kind of ease me into the big times. So is the hope.
So, why did you come on to the podcast today?
You asked me to come on. I thought it would be a really wonderful opportunity to meet another awesome author, as well as just kind of taking a step into the unknown. I've never done anything like this before, so it's definitely a new learning experience as we go.
Yes, it definitely is, because if you want to know, audience, this is our second time recording.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
First time was an amazing experience, and then the laptop went boop.
Boop, it just, no, not today, Jason. Okay, so what was your main inspirations for the Underground?
So Undergrounder kind of came about with my love for the Beauty and the Beast stories. That is my go-to trope. I'm trash for it. I know that I am. But I really wanted to write a story that had that theme, but imbued female to female relationships, as we don't often see that so much. I wanted to tell a story that was a bit deeper than what your standard Beauty and the Beast would be, touching on darker tones, while also, showing healthy relationships. It also was heavily inspired by the old 1980s TV series that I grew up with my mom watching. We both loved it, and so I took some elements from that, and then just elements from my own personal love for urban environments and the secret undergrounds that we all like to kind of imagine are there below our feet, and just kind of ran with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I was gonna add this in, but it didn't seem like a Beauty and the Beast tale. I don't know why. I just really liked it. It didn't seem like it. It didn't seem like a traditional one, and it didn't seem like a remixed version of one. Because I don't know. And if we really were to say this is a Beauty and the Beast tale, I'm sorry, but Lee would be the beauty.
No, I completely agree. Like, out of everyone, I think Lee's the most attractive in that, that feral way of like, oh, she could kill me. Oh no, she's hot.
Yeah, like I don't know.
Well, she's just your standard, New York reporter, out in the world. If I had to pick like a face character for her, she kind of reminds me of Amy Adams a little bit, but no, Lee's definitely the like, oh God, all right, we're doing this now.
Like, can you count me 2 days from that? Like 2 days from now, not now, because I try to enjoy this. Like I don't know why she just give me those vibes, and I'm vibing with that.
She definitely got like a daddy vibe, but then when you read her, you're like, oh, she's such a small bean. But then her presence is very intimidating.
Okay, so can you tell us in some details about the specific writing process for the Underground?
So you'll probably hear me talk about this quite a bit during the podcast. Is that my wife and I we kind of co-write this. I'm the one who puts everything down on paper and kind of paints the picture, but she bounces off the ideas with me. So we do a lot of brainstorming sessions back and forth. She and I. We usually start with scenes that we really enjoy, or something that really speaks to us, something that might have been inspired by a song that we had listened to, or something that we've seen on TV, and we'll start to build on that. Generally, I'm a bit more of like a mix between a plotter and a plantster, I guess is what they call it. I'll throw seeds out to get the ideas down and then kind of roam where they go, but I try to write linear. We usually start with the ending. We get that down in concrete, and then create the opener, the beginning, whether that be a prologue or just the first chapter. And then it's just a matter of kind of connecting the dots. It's kind of the way I like to look at my writing, is that it's very much a connect the dots game of I've got all these points that I need to reach, and then once I'm there, I will have a full picture of what I'm trying to, get from my head to my fingers.
Completely understand that. And it's something I don't know if this is weird, but I do it. So the way I do my outlines and novels and such, I do the first chapter. Well, I do a general outline before I do anything. And this is very basic, bare bones. It's just that what's going to happen, the important events. They don't have any strict detail. And then I do the first, middle, and end chapters, and then I just pants my way to those chapters using the.
Right, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
what I
kind
do.
of build as you go, yeah.
Because I find like if I do the outline very detailed, I get bored when I'm writing
Right. Oh yeah. If you put too much into that, then you're definitely very you do get bored
it.
and
And if I put too less, I don't know where the story go. Like it just goes nowhere. I get to a point where I'm like, what can I do? What can I do now? So, what were some difficulties you faced while writing your novel? How did you overcome
A lot of the difficulties is just really finding the time. Like I said earlier, I work full time and I also do prop building on the side as my part time job. So between that and then just sitting down and getting the ideas together, it's really hard to carve out time. I'm very much a stickler for my schedule, so I've managed to actually get a set writing time in the evenings, but life gets in the way sometimes and you can't stick to it. Beyond just time management, it would be breaking down the story and actually getting it from my head to my fingertips onto the keyboard. I can have these amazing cinematic scenes in mind, and then trying to describe that to your reader, which is
it?
essentially your audience.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you tangled up in the words, and you get tangled up in just the descriptions, and yeah. So
I
that's
completely I
yeah.
completely relate to that because I have this beautiful vision in my head, and it's so like sometimes it's so hard to get it onto the paper.
Right, and sometimes you feel like, "Oh my god, this is so flat. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not translating it well." And then you send it off to someone to read, and they're like, "Oh my god, this is genius." And you're like, "No, it's not. This is
Yeah,
awful. What are you
yeah,
talking about?"
yeah. I do it all the time. I feel like that's just the writer everything we do.
Yeah, and we are very self-critical of our own work. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
all artists are. We hate what we do and we think it's the worst. But to someone who doesn't participate in or doesn't have the same mind that we do, it's this
Mm-hmm.
great thing. But we're like, "Oh my god, this is trash. I'm trash."
Yeah, like what happened? I was writing so good yesterday, now it's terrible.
Oh yeah.
If you can give yourself fantastic products, what would it be?
That one was a hard one. While I was looking at the question list, I think it would just be to record myself when I have a really good line of dialogue. I am awful at coming up with really good dialogue or really good scene descriptions while my wife and I are going back and forth. And we won't record. We'll just, no, I'll totally remember that. That's fine. This is genius. Nothing's gonna happen. And then 2 hours later, I'm like, oh my god, what did I say?
Yeah.
So definitely record is a key piece of advice here.
Mm-hmm.
And also just to write the story. Like I mentioned earlier, sometimes you get so tangled up in the details that you can't get the picture out the way that you want to. So just sit down and write your story. No matter how crappy you think it is, no matter if you think it's cliche or if it's,
Mm-hmm.
if you're running into a wall, just continue writing. If you have to go minimalistic in order to get the thought out, do that too. But stopping at any point or giving up is
Mm-hmm.
not an option. And to my younger self, I get very frustrated while a scene wasn't unfolding, and I wouldn't skip to the next one. I just kind of sit and dwell on it, and then of course the inspiration leaves you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, record myself and then just write, just write.
Just like that's so wonderful advice because I find myself doing like these same things, and it's so weird because all the authors I talk to this month, we all have these same similar views on writing and our favorite tropes and tropes that we hate, and what we should do and what we shouldn't do. It's so weird because it's so unified in a way when we're all different people with different experiences, but
Right, right.
yeah, but we can come together and have that same like guideline or struggles or experiences that we can share with people. That's just kind of fascinating. Um, what advice would you give any of the audience members about trying to write their own novel?
Pretty much the same advice from above. Just write it. don't worry about if it's good, if someone has done it before, if this is, just another drop in the bucket, because in the harsh reality, it is. All stories have been
Mm-hmm.
written at some point. We're all kind of regurgitating the same, five or six different, plot structures. But like the way that I like to think about it is we have hundreds of different hamburger joints across the country. We have so many different brands, but people still eat there regardless. It's because people love familiarity. They love to be able to go and get something that they're truly going to enjoy. And that's the same thing with stories. And then granted, we all want to have that, we want to hit that peak of being, the next, latest and greatest. We want to reach,
Mm-hmm.
JK peaks, or, George R. R. Martin peaks, or any of the, the larger writers, out there. But at the end of the day, just write your story. That's it. Just write it true. Do your research if it's in an area that you're not familiar with. I stress that so much, especially for those who want to write in minority groups, or or with minority voices. Please do your research. Please reach out, but just write your story. That's it. Just sit down and put words on paper.
Mm-hmm. How do you deal with the stress and pressure of writing your own novel?
Poorly. I'm being honest. Um, it's a struggle. It really is. Like there's a lot of guilt that gets looped up on not being able to produce the amount of content that I want to in a certain day or certain week. So it really is just kind of swallowing the idea that I have a life outside of this, and fortunately,
Mm-hmm.
writing is not paying my bills. So I have to do that first so that I can come back to it. But really, it's kind of sitting with that mindset, but also I do a lot of physical work with my hands, because I am an artist outside of writing. I love tactile, physical art that I can hold and make. That's why I do the prop building on the side. So if I do find myself getting like super duper stressed to the point of where I'm wigging out, or I'm making myself sick, or the guilt's just too much, I'll step away and take a breather. Usually, I say I will. It's my wife who's like, "Baby, you definitely need to like take a break. Please walk away from this for just a few." And I'll go do something else for a bit, let my mind kind of cool and calm down, and let the thoughts congeal before coming back to it. So it's kind of like a little bit of a zen thing of being able to work
Mm-hmm.
with my hands. Then I can come back and once again work with my hands, but putting words on paper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely like. I just keep relating to all of these topics. I completely, yeah, I completely relate. I mean, because on top of school, writing, and other things that I have going on in my life, I have a strict schedule. Like I have to do this by 1, I have to do this at 9 to 10, I have to do this at 8. Like, and it can become overwhelming sometimes, and it
Oh
can
yeah.
become discouraging. But like, it's
Oh, very
really
much so.
about finding that because
It is.
I noticed like, oh, if I do this and then give myself a short break here, I can do it longer here. Like, it's all about finding that balance when you're writing because
Yeah, definitely pacing.
hmm
Yeah.
because sometimes it's good to sit down and force yourself to write, and sometimes it's not. Like that's what I
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
You definitely can't push progress, in certain regards. You can't force it. I mean, you can push it, but you can't really force it. And
Mm-hmm.
the what you just said about the schedule, that's very much me. That I'm very much ruled by the schedule, and I get
Mm-hmm.
caught up in that. Oh my god, I'm late for doing this, and then I just kind of
Mm-hmm.
spiral, and then my writing is pretty much done for the night because I'm like, oh, I'm in a depressive swing. Shit.
Yeah. So what are you currently reading?
I just finished Foundry Side by I think it's Robert Bennett. I believe it is. Let me see. Yeah. Yep, Robert Jackson Bennett. Just finished Foundry Side. Fantastic novel. I highly recommend. It's a really, really fascinating take on the old standard of the voice of God being imbued in objects. It's fantasy, but it's not so high fantasy that you don't feel like you could understand it. The magic system
Mm-hmm.
is really sound, and the characters are phenomenal. So I would highly recommend it.
And since I have a book and informative and nonfiction piece right in front of me, I'm going to say mine. I'm reading Characters in Viewpoint by Scott Card. And it's very informative. It's very helpful. It helped me with a lot of my work. But I will say that it is very simplistic. It is not complicated, and this can be a turn on or a turn off for some readers because if you're more advanced, this may help you refine some of your crafts, but it's not going to broaden your horizons per se.
Right.
But if you're a novice like me, it will really help you get into like what can you do to improve the voices, the characters, characterization. Why do we choose first person over third person and things like that? Okay, so what was the first book you've ever read?
Something that will never see the light of day.
Like,
It was it was, let's see, how can I describe it in a way that doesn't seem entirely juvenile? I wrote it when I was, I think, 12 is when I started it. I'm 30 now, so I was like, oh my god. It was pretty much a grumpy werewolf goes on a cross-country adventure with her college buddies in order to prevent the end of the world. And it will never see the light of day. It only has one copy, and I have that copy, and I will happily burn that copy if my wife would allow me to, but I am not, so it sits in a trunk, hopefully someday forgotten. But it was my first real trial at writing active characters and getting into doing, I guess, would be the fantasy that I enjoy writing and reading, as well as tapping into darker themes. Of course, as a 12-year-old, we're all edgy 12-year-olds at some point. So we want to be the next the next Stephanie Myers. We want to have our my immortal moments. But yeah, it was a trip, and it's yeah. It's not something I'm ever gonna share.
Okay. So our last recording, I actually told you the first novel I finished. I didn't tell you the first novel I ever read. Like I didn't finish the novel, but it does have chapters in it, and I want to tell you that one instead of the first one I've ever finished.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear it.
Okay. The first one I've ever finished is the one about the Clark character, but the first one I've ever written, I'm pretty sure it was a short story on a character getting. Okay, it was a 3-person family. I know that. I had it a couple days ago. 3-person family. It was a father, it was a son, it was a mother, and it's kind of like the traditional. Like you think they're having a good life, but each little chapter, it added a little dark scene, like where like something's not right with this family.
Right. Kind of thread that darkness in there.
But I never finished it. But the ending was supposed to have you realize that the mother was dead all along. I never finished
okay.
it.
So this is a Sixth Sense ending then.
Yeah, the mother was dead all along, and I was just going through my Google Docs, like I'm curious what's down here, and then I found it, and I think it was called Beyond the Grave or something like that. And,
you had a much better name than what mine was.
Like it was like so weird reading my old writing because I cringed so much.
Oh yeah, no, that's pure cringeworthy content right there. I think the title for mine was the original was like Quest for Destiny or whatever, like because like an edgy 12-year-old, like that's the best title ever.
Yeah, but I love to say to writers that like if you can go back and read the writing and you feel it's terrible, that's such a good thing because then you know that you grew and that you learned.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, definitely. Like the best way to show, just like you said, the best way to show the progression that you have made is to look backward. I'm always telling, my wife that in her artwork that she does as well as, writers who are starting out, it's like, please just look behind you and see how far you've come. Because you really have. You don't feel like you've moved, but you have.
Yeah, like you said, you really have. And it's so freaking weird because I don't know why, but like we always do this thing where we self-doubt our writing when honestly it's pretty good. Most of the times it's really good. And like I guess that's just a human thing because I notice that it's not all the time with writers. Like my sister, she's really into drawing. Like she draws and she can draw to me. Like she can really draw that on a piece of paper. But anytime she looked at her work, she said, "Oh, it's not good. It's not this. It's not that." But it really is amazing from compared to her initial start. She barely draw a bottom.
Right. It's progression, it's practice. That's also, that's the writer, any artist really, the artist's greatest tool is practice. Practice, practice, practice. People ask, oh, you're so talented. How did you get that way? Practice. It's the most mundane answer. It sucks. I know that you want to hear some great grand thing, but practice, repetition. It's awful, but it works.
Mm-hmm. So I know this is a terrible question to ask a writer or an author. Like, it's terrible.
Okay, I'm bracing.
Okay, who's your favorite and least favorite character in Underground and why?
Okay, let me think. I have to like dredge it up and kind of weigh and measure. I don't really have least favorite characters. If I didn't like the character, I wouldn't write them. I'm very attached to all of my characters, even my villains. The worse they are, the more cathartic it is for myself. I say the character that I love the most is going to definitely be Lee. She's very close to my heart. And Georgia, those two, with M kind of thrown in there too, because God bless M, she's the best. But and then I guess like the one that I wouldn't use the most or the most infrequently used would be Falcone, since he's really only mentioned very briefly in the beginning, and then in the sequel he will definitely have a greater role. But the least used character would be Falcone, so I'd have to kind of go with that. But definitely Lee, Georgia, and M, for obvious reasons, since they're all just beautiful characters.
My top two, it was really hard. My top two favorite characters was Georgia because she's so snarky, so funny. I always love her. She always has something snarky to say to the little thing to the book that lightens up the mood and just lets you go. And then my second favorite is one of the main characters. I often flip flop because Lee. Oh my god, Lee is really one of my favorite characters, and Alex is too. But like, it's so hard to choose between them because I feel like they're a 2-for-1 deal. Like I feel like they come together. Like,
opposite sides of the same coin, kind of a deal.
Yeah. So it's really hard to choose between one of those characters. But like an honorable mention for a character that I really like is the mother.
Oh, Rebecca. Yeah.
Rebecca. Because like at first I was like, come on now, like don't do this, like just talk it out, because that's the best thing you can do, because something's gonna happen, and then you know what happened. Yeah. I'm just like, no.
Yeah, we got that part. It was like, oh crap.
Yeah, and then I sit there and I was like, I had to stop because I realized I was getting too emotionally involved. Like I was just like, oh my god, I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna stop.
If it makes you feel any better through that specific scene, like I don't know if we want to do spoilers for the listener, but through that specific scene and everything beyond that, I sobbed. I was a mess. Like I had to walk away for at least a week just to kind of process, because like this is really dark even for me. Holy crap. But Rebecca is a really good character, and she was fun to write, and just kind of fleshing out her thoughts, because you do kind of like one of the things, and let me backtrack a bit as I get tongue tied here. With Undergrounder, it does have a lot of Beauty and the Beast themes for. That's kind of what I had in mind. But one of my other favorite movies, because you can obviously tell I'm a bit of a Disney nerd, was Hunchback of Notre Dame. I loved Hunchback growing up. The music was just fantastic, and I really liked the story. So there's a lot of themes in Undergrounder that kind of mirror the original Hunchback. And Rebecca was definitely a Frollo type character, minus the religious zealotry, obvious racism, and genocidal tendencies. So writing her and kind of fleshing out her character, and finding that sweet spot where it really is, she just cares so much about her daughter. That's all she wants is the best for her, and she fucked up really poorly in the beginning of Lee's life, which we find out. But then it's kind of finding that redeeming thread of, she is this way for a specific reason. Why is this? Oh my God, that's why. So she was really fun to flesh out as I wrote her.
Authors get on here. The way that y'all write and the way that y'all speak is so, I don't know, it's so,
I mean, I hope I'm legible. I feel like I'm not.
no, you really are. Like when you really get into the moment and start talking about something, it's like so intriguing. Like I just want to listen. And I feel like I don't have that. Like I can write okay, like I can capture the audience, but when I speak, I get tongue tied and such and such. Like,
No, you're doing fine. No, you're seriously, you're doing fine. I like hearing about the work that you're bringing forward. I mean, because you also, you're much younger than I am. We won't go in like age wise. We'll just kind of leave that there. But it not, definitely not hitting on that. I'm older than you, but with age comes experience. So you're definitely first starting out. You're still very fresh with this. Writing for the time that you have been, but you got to grow in the voice, and you're doing fine. Seriously.
Well, thank you. We have to get into some dark stuff now. Now that I'm looking at the question.
Oh yeah, I remember that. We had to touch on stuff, and maybe now that I've been able to think about it, we can get even darker. Oh crap!
Here we go.
Everyone, ready? Here we go.
Okay. Oh, let's get it. We got one more lighthearted question.
Okay.
Let's give it that.
Okay.
If you had a chance to rewrite the Underground, what would you have done?
I don't think I would have done anything differently. I really enjoy the way that it is, and it tells a story that I want it to tell. So it's obviously gone through its own edits, and I've worked on characters and given them greater voice or pulled back some. Georgia's actually one of those. In the original version, she definitely wasn't as solid of a character as I really wanted her to be. So in the rewrite, I definitely did a lot more research into what her character would be. As well as just her voice and getting that authenticity correct. But beyond that, I'm very, very happy with the end result, and I don't think I would go back and change anything, aside from like minor edits and tweaks here and there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need to, because honestly, like, it's very intriguing. It's really a jewel, because at no point of this story did I have like critique, because normally I have a critique section, and in this episode 1, which is why you're letting me guess on episode 1, is because I don't have any critique for you. It was amazing. It was really amazing.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and here comes the
Okay.
Stop.
Alrighty. Okay.
Good. So, what's the meaning / theme of the Undergrounder, and why did you choose to find this theme?
The basic themes for Underground, or at least, well, I mean, not really basic, but I really wanted to go with love and acceptance, but not in the themes that we typically see in romance stories like this. Obviously, because the characters are both gay women, you would expect there to be a bit of a coming out. They're reconciling with these feelings of oh no, I'm attracted to this woman, and I didn't want to touch on that because not every story, involving LGBTQ needs to be a coming out story. And so I really wanted to touch on love and acceptance beyond that coming out trope, and go beyond that to the acceptance of I am a victim. Alex is a victim. She was assaulted physically at the very beginning of the story. It was a violent, vicious assault, and she had to come to terms with the fact that she is a victim now, and she has to relearn to love herself around that that big V word, which for a lot of women it's very hard. As a victim of assault myself, it is extremely hard to come to terms with that over the years. So I really wanted to do that, but also it's love, and it's was touching on with Rebecca, it's the love of a mother and how far you will go to protect your child, and how far is too far, or how far is not far enough. And the love that the Underground shows Lee, she is a physically strange looking person. She's a genetic experiment. She's very different in the face and in the body, and yet those around her love her, and there's acceptance there. So I really wanted to show that it was a love and acceptance beyond what we typically see in standard romance media.
Despite that minor inconvenience, can you answer the question, does events/emotions mirror the events/emotions dealt with in the story?
That's definitely a yes. And it's a little bit harder to explain. Like we would get into some pretty dark areas. Writing is my catharsis. It's very much the way that I deal with personal issues or issues that have come up in the past. How I kind of weed through my own internal thoughts and struggles and demons. As most artists use it as a way to kind of cope. It definitely is a coping mechanism. I can speak tonight. But yes, there are a lot of themes in Undergrounder that I've experienced in real life. Mentioning the acts of violent assaults, and dealing heavily with depression, and with the darkness that comes with closeting. Since we didn't really touch on that with Undergrounder, but there are still kind of themes that undertow in it about self closeting. So yes, there are a lot of darker themes that are touched on that I have experienced that I do use, in my writing to kind of cope.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. I realized that with a lot of writers, you do mirror things and events that happen to us onto our characters, and it I don't know, because sometimes I feel happy about it because I get to talk about these things and people get to read about them and hopefully enjoy them. But other times I feel scared because I feel like I'm exposing myself in a way. So,
Oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah, you are becoming vulnerable because you're exposing, like you just said, that the very soft part of yourself to the scrutiny of strangers, and that's very, very hard. But for us, it kind of like a form of like self therapy. Obviously, not taking the place of proper therapy, which is should be sought out if needed. But yeah, we definitely tend to use it as a coping mechanism. It's our voice that we've internalized, that we're finally able to let out in a safe manner. We're able to face our demons or face our villains safely behind a screen, conquer them without risk of repercussions, whether it be like legal repercussions or emotional.
I didn't forget. It's just we record a month ahead. Is that Happy Pride Month?
Yes, very much a Happy Pride Month.
This is on the Saturday of June, so hopefully you enjoy this podcast because started on Pride Month.
Yeah. Happy Pride. We're kicking off with some heavy shit.
Yes. So, as a queer woman, can you describe some of your struggles in identity, relationships, friendships, and etc.?
Growing up, I grew up in a very in a religious household, so I wasn't able to really come to terms with my queerness and sexuality until later in life, unfortunately. And I did put a bit of a strain growing up, not knowing where to plant my feet, not understanding these feelings that I had, inside of me that I would feel towards other women, and so oftentimes men. I just kind of blanket myself as a queer woman. I don't really put myself into a label quite yet, but friendship wise, my friends were always very, very accepting of me. I was able to definitely come out to them sooner than I would my family. So I didn't really have any strains there. But when I did eventually come out, to my family, there were some tensions between myself and my grandmother. She's very religious and very much did not approve and still does not approve. And my mother eventually came around. My father was very supporting. So I was very lucky in the sense that they were willing to listen to me, willing to hear my voice, and to at least in some cases validate these feelings. Enough so that I was able to be, with my wife, who's still with me, to this day, and we were high school sweethearts, and she ended up moving in with me when she was 18, and we kind of had to keep that relationship under wraps for a very long time until my later 20s. So it was definitely it's a struggle of image and appearance, of trying to place myself in where I feel most comfortable, becoming comfortable in my skin, and growing as a person. And I'm still am I'm 31, and I still struggle to this day with body image issues, and where to place myself. But it's gotten a lot gotten a lot easier over the years, as well as society has become more accepting, and we see more of it in the media, and more of ourselves portrayed out in entertainment. It definitely comes a lot easier to come to terms with yourself.
Yes, and I completely relate to that struggle because even though I went through something different, it's quite similar. Because growing up, I was attracted to both males and females, I'm bisexual, and it was so weird because I often go through in the beginning stages of figuring out what I love. I often go through these stages where I thought I was homosexual for liking males, and then I thought I was heterosexual for liking females, and it was kind of confusing. And then
Right.
I grew up in a school that was, it was, they really, it, it was something. Like, they didn't care for your sexual orientation. Like, there were these heterosexuals, homosexuals, um, it was these main two groups at my school via sexuality, but it was no like pansexuals, transgenders, bisexuals. So I didn't really grow up knowing what those things were
Right.
outside of the homosexual. So I just switched between those groups, and then when I finally did discover what I was and I was openly out, it was kind of difficult because homosexuals, they usually a lot. Well, I had some homosexual friends that was cool with it, but sometimes they would just say that I'm half gay or half straight, or that I'm just straight,
Right.
that I'm just straight, and I just want to be a part of their crowd. Or the
Right.
heterosexuals would be like, oh, you're gay, or you're half straight, or you just want to be a part of that crowd. So honestly, like, it just kind
Right.
of,
It is. It's the mythical, that what do they call it, like the mythical queer, where you fit into neither, and it's really it is bullshit. Biphobia in itself, or any of the phobias, it's just
yeah.
internalized homophobia that we've learned from being oppressed.
Mm-hmm. That's why I think it's very important that we have kids media with people like us and diverse people, because it really, like, when I didn't grow up with that, it really made me think that something was wrong with me,
Oh
because
yeah,
like,
yeah, it's very damaging.
yeah, because I never I'm not on that screen, so I'm not in this book. I don't see myself in this movie character. So what is wrong with me? I really
Right.
grew up with that mentality. So
Right. It's the
that's why I
yeah.
really love the book, because it's like I love queer media because it's really enlightening for people that want me to see, like, to know that there's nothing wrong with them.
Right, it's the validation that we are here. We are real. We aren't just a choice that one day that we choose that we want to be. This, I would say that this race isn't really the right word for it. It's this group of people who want to be actively oppressed. We choose this lifestyle when we don't. We're born into this. Chemically, we are this, and not to see ourselves represented, it's very damaging and very damning, especially for the young generation, like you mentioned, that they're growing up, and luckily, we are seeing a shift, and that's amazing. I love that we're actually seeing queer media in kid shows, because it helps to reaffirm that you are right, you are correct, you are not broken, you are not diseased, you're not this full sinner of a thing, that you are just a person who loves differently, and it's it's validating, but it's also healing, because we are our generation, and of course the generations behind us who have to deal with the heavy homophobia. It's damaging, and it's dangerous and deadly. It causes the deep depressions and the spirals. So it very much is that I'm very happy to see the progression that we've made. In the steps, or at least for showing queer representation in media and in entertainment.
Yeah, that's also guys. Let's start get dark real quick.
We're gonna keep going. It's just gonna keep going from here.
Yeah. Okay. So, what are your views on LGBTQ plus rights and the way society views us?
We've definitely come a long way from where we've been in the past. I'll start off by saying that our acceptance in modern media has definitely become more. We're seen more, we're heard more, and it's definitely a positive. But there still could be more. Like we are still viewed as the secondary, the sidekick, the characters who are always in the background, never in the foreground. But that's just in media itself. In ways of rights, we definitely have come a long way. I'm able to marry my wife, and I'm able to see older gay couples getting married and having happily ever afters, which is what we deserve, because we are people too. But I also see that we, even in the queer community, in the LGBT community, we still have a long way to go with acceptance of the smaller subsidiaries and the smaller groups. We still have such a hard time with accepting trans people, with accepting ace people, with the acceptance of the smaller minorities within our minority, and the internalized homophobia that we still struggle with. So we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. To be able to bring true acceptance and equality, which is the key word there, across the board, which we don't have. But we're getting there.
And then to add on to this, it seems like in certain cases, not all cases, it seems like it's getting better, but it's actually not. And what I mean by this is queerbaiting. We like to grab at little strings of, oh, this could be this, this could be that. Because I feel like we really are starved in a way, because I feel like even when we get our representation, it's always a common story. It's always a repeated story with slightly different themes. I don't feel I don't see that gay superhero, or like in these traditional roles. I don't never really see. I always see like a closeted character, or this, or they have these problems, or not all people in my community are the same people. They don't have all the same struggles. I could have had a problem with coming out, but they could have already knew from the start and never had a problem. So I feel like, I feel like exactly what you said. We come so far, but we still have a long way to go.
Right, and you're right. Queer baiting is definitely a thing that is a problem, and I will call out Disney till the day that I die. That they are it's rampant within their company that they will promise queer characters, and yet here we are as props and as kickstands for the heroes, or as the punchline. And and it's not just with them; it's major media, and also in stories. Moving away from television, in stories, we are props, and it's infuriating. And that's why I mentioned kids media, that we are actually finally seeing a breakthrough of queer characters being shown, but it's still could be further. We could still do more, and queer baiting is lazy man's writing. It really is. It's trying to tap into the vein that they know is there, that these het writers know it's there, but they are either too homophobic, or they're too afraid of their quote unquote bottom dollar being harmed because of a very loud, and I say minority in the sense of very loud minority of those who hate us. It's not as many as we would think, but they do have a lot of pull and power, because Hollywood is and entertainment is still very old and white. So so we it's definitely a problem, and I hope that within the next 5, 10, 15 years that we see them tackle this fear and tackle the lazy writing of queer baiting, and just write us in as normal people, because by God we are. We're not we're not these purple unicorns that we walk among you. You won't even know we're there half the time, because we are just normal people with normal stories to tell, normal love. We're not these fiends that they paint us to be. So eventually they'll finally get that, and also they'll hopefully they'll realize the money they're losing out, because like you said, that us in the queer community, we will spot gay characters from a mile away, and we will throw money at that character. So could you imagine, like a full series, excluding She-Ra that just ended, which was entirely queer coded, with active open MC queer characters with a queer love story. But could you just imagine, something on prime time, how much money they would make? Or, in books, if they actually wrote active queer characters, in these stories, how many of us would just throw money at them?
What was some oh wait, since our last recording, I know it's going to be a spoiler, so I'm going to leave the timestamp in the description or somewhere, and you can skip this question because this is going to be a spoiler.
It is, yeah.
It's really deep, so yeah. What were some particularly challenging moments to write and why?
It's definitely going to be the chapter of Rebecca's death. The exchange between her and Lee, between the door and the emotion there, getting out, everything from the dialogue to when the gun fires. It was very difficult. Yeah. It wrecked me for a while after reading. I had to step away for a bit just to kind of process. Because you don't really anticipate killing a parent in your stories. It's not something that modern every character, right? It's not what you really anticipate when you go into this. And of course, we knew leading up to this that Rebecca was in a bad way, but yeah, just her being trapped on the other side of the door and Lee there just pleading with her to please open it. And their exchange, back and forth, it wrecked me. It left me just so broken. Even going back and editing it after I had written it was hard. So that, hands down was the hardest scene in the book itself.
And if I have to say in that was the hardest scene for me to read. I had to sit down and take a deep breath because
reorient yourself and calm down.
Yeah, because I'm like, how did she really do this? I was like, I'm going to hold on to the hope that she can tell. I'm going to hold on to the hope. I'm going to hold it. No, she's not going to do this. It's going to have a nice ending where she gets to talk to her feelings, and then no.
No, it is denied. We are done.
Yeah, this is another killer question for authors. I love to answer these questions. What is your favorite chapter involved?
Favorite chapters is definitely going to be Let's Dance and Top of the World. Let's Dance was actually written to one of my favorite songs, same title, by FM84, an excellent synthwave band if you want to listen to them. Excellent song, beautiful lyrics, beautiful music too. But I have this really weird innate ability to write really good dance sequences, and I don't know why. It just kind of comes naturally. So that scene of having Lee and Alex finally come together, finally realizing that their feelings are valid, that it is love, it is not just infatuation based on X reason and X reason between the two of them, for savior syndrome or victimhood, and that they finally embrace and they finally come together, as a couple. Kind of, we see that, that glint of, they're finally a couple, and they sweep themselves around this beautiful ballroom. I'm tropey. I love balls. And the fact that, we kind of did it, a la Phantom of the Opera is even better. And then Top of the World, where, Alex takes Lee to, literally the center of the universe, tallest building in New York, to show her the city that she has lived under, her entire life, that she's only ever dreamed of seeing topside. She takes her, to sky level to show her the city at night and, the majesty that is, the New York skyline at night. And I think like one of my favorite, lines from it is, describing what she's seeing as like this, glittering glass and steel sea of earthbound art, butting up against the Empire State Building. And it's that awe and that majesty. And then it's also, Alex finally breaking down that wall of saying, all this time, I've been falling in love with you and I've been running from it. And accepting her feelings, not as, obviously as a gay woman coming out, but, as this woman who, loves this very strange woman, who deeply loves her back. So, those two, just because I'm mushy, I really like, those are my favorites. Hands down, my favorites of the book so far.
I hate when authors do this. I hate when I answer these questions because I'm a very cynical writer. I always like the worst chapter or the climax chapter or a chapter where something goes severely wrong. I'm a very simple person. Because I'm going to say it time and time again, I hate books that end too sweet. I love bittersweet endings because I know the characters had to sacrifice something to get
right,
where
definitely.
they are. Mm-hmm. And my favorite chapter is going to be the chapter where everything falls apart in the beginning, where Alex finds out about Lee, out her appearance, and everything falls apart. And I really like the chapter because I knew like every relationship is a mess. Nobody trusts no one currently, but I know it's going to be built back up, and they all going to have trust for each other once more, or respect in some kind of way. And it was going to be a beautiful story. Beautiful story. So.
Beautiful, heartbreaking. I lure you in with that. Oh, this is going to be cute, and then I kick you in the teeth with the last few chapters.
Yeah, really good.
I have a knack for that too. Is a running joke among my friends and beta readers is that I'm the angst empress. I've earned my crown and I wear it proudly, and I do. But situational hypocrisy was an excellent chapter of just of finally breaking that ice, and eventually Alice has got to figure out what Lee looks like. She just can't float through this thinking that she's quote unquote normal.
Mm-hmm.
And then also just throwing Rebecca in there too, this mix of how dare you be yourself, and the fight that she and Alex and Lee get into. Yeah, it was definitely a good chapter. It's that good fall apart, get back to the bare bones of things and slowly rebuild.
It's cynical.
No, we all like what we like. Like I love happily ever after's HEA endings. But I'm gonna make my characters fight for it. You damn well better bet that they're gonna go tooth and nail to get to it.
Yeah.
Nothing in life is easy.
I respect that because it's really powerful. Okay, so can you talk about some writing techniques that you picked up on?
Over the years, I think the best technique that I've landed on is when you're in a pinch and when you're in a bind and you can't get from point A to point B, either you're in writer's block or it just isn't coming, is to write minimalistically. Just put words on paper, throw it there. I always describe my writing style as kind of throwing paint at a canvas and then going in and adding in the detail as I go. So if you think about it that way, you're throwing paint at a canvas, you're throwing words at a screen, you're just tricking your mind into start to create and start to flow. And then from there, you can always build onto it. It's a good foundational building block. So yeah, write minimalistically if you're stuck, or if you're trying to hash out an idea and then go from there.
Let me try that. My personal advice would be, because a lot of Wattpad stories, they have amazing plot, and their description is actually really good, but their downfall is dialogue. And they see a lot of he said, she said, I said, and it really brings me out of the story because I keep getting reminded that these characters are saying something. I don't actually hear the voices in my head, and it's not flowing as in one scene. So
right.
My advice for that would be, what I realized that works and that I analyze in my own novels and other people's novels is that earn your dialogue tags. Only if you already know who's saying something without a dialogue tag, don't use it. And then when you do have a dialogue tag, make it so that the character is doing an action while saying something, and make it so that this character, it gives that character characterization, or they're describing something that's weird or unique to their personality, or make sure it's not just them talking back and forth. Make sure some other elements in there, because it really gets boring really quickly, even if it's hype. Even if it's intense, it gets boring really quickly, and you can really draw a reader out by keep saying he said, she said, I said.
Yeah, definitely.
So what are some tropes do you adore and do you hate? And
I like how you laughed at that.
Because I know the answer. Because one, I share these answers with you, and two, I don't know why every author say that we say the exact same tropes, but we hate the exact same tropes.
and yet there are still so many stories out there with those tropes. I think like I love all the tropes. I'm a trope slut. I will admit to it. I will come clean on that. But I really enjoy the reversal of the tropes where it is, focused on the queer community, because again, we don't often see that done. We see, so many het tropes, we kind of roll our eyes at it, but then when it's put to gay characters, we're like, oh my god, this is revolutionary. It's not. I've never seen it before. But I love obviously like the Beauty and the Beast tropes, and I love the tropes of the star-crossed lovers. Obviously not in the negative sense. We're not going to be doing any Romeo and Juliets in here because
I don't have time.
We don't know. We're not even going to touch on that hot mess of a story. But I love your basic tropes are like the tall and the small, the angry gruff character with the soft marshmallowy character. I love the coffee shop AUs that you see in fan fiction. And yes, I do read and I do sometimes write fan fiction. That's where I got my start. It was writing fics. I will admit to that very very plainly and proudly. That's where I got my start in writing. So the tropes of God, I could list so many of them, and I mean you can go and Google, but the ones that I don't like is where we see abuse. Obviously, the bad boy, and the billionaire tropes of the men who are clearly abusive, the Twilight or the 50 Shades of Grey, and the BDSM tropes. All these things that center around the idea that one. Abuse is love, which flat out is unacceptable. And two, that queers are predatory, which is again flat out unacceptable.
Totally agree. It's the same thing. It's like it's really common that people idolize things that should not. They glorify like things like depression, suicide, self-harm, like these are serious topics. And people really go through these things and you depict them this way. Yes, I think like you should have a freedom of speech and you should be able to express yourself in any way, but not at the expense of harming other people.
Right. And, well, I mean, like freedom of speech does not stop you from freedom of consequence, and that's something that in this country we definitely need to learn. But no, you are absolutely right that these writers will glorify mental illness as this beautiful thing, and it's not. It's a killer. It's a disease that kills you. But we love the cute the Tumblr depression. When you're in the closet with the fairy lights, and I'm so sad, and that's not it. And no, I definitely agree with you on all points in that. Is that we as a society with writers we latch on to these really negative ideals and run with it because one, it sells, because we've just consumed it for so long we assume it's normal, which that's something that definitely the status quo needs to be changed. But it's disheartening, but it also goes to show where we can fix things, what needs to be fixed, and how we can fix it. And those of us who do experience these things, are the voices that need to be telling the true stories.
What are some parts of writing that energize you and exhaust you?
I am completely backwards in what most people would feel. I am exhausted by the actual writing process. Like sitting down and putting words on paper and plotting out the story and getting it all done is exhausting. I absolutely love to edit. I love to go back and look at what I've done and start putting in the fine detail and adding in those little gems of verbiage and of scenery, and getting that just getting it super sharp, gem quality facets to it. That's my favorite part, and I get super jazzed while doing it, and then have to go back and start to write it again and get tired.
I'm so wishy-washy on that. Like, outlining, I generally have a draft time too because I'm essentially the god. Like I can do whatever I want. Like I have to outline.
The god complex.
Mm-hmm. And then when I'm actually writing, this depends on the chapter, to be honest. I notice that like if it's a scene where there's a lot of emotional things going on, I like to write. It's quick to write. But if it's a scene where a lot of action is going on, a more external conflict than internal. It's kind of slow. It's slow for me
Right.
because I'm I, I'm more of that contemporary person. I love the realism of novels. I love fantasy and all the other types of genre, sci-fi. But if it don't have that hint of realism, that just it doesn't resonate.
Right.
So, what are your goals for the future?
Um. Ooh, it's a broad question. Ultimately, with the near future is I want to get Undergrounder professionally edited and self-published. I have a feeling that it would probably do better self-publishing wise. I don't believe an agent would be interested in picking it up. I haven't done the querying process in years, so I might be entirely wrong on that. But I definitely want to get it polished up and ready and to put up in for mass consumption. I also have two other novels that I'm working on simultaneously because I'm insane and I guess I love to hate myself. A little bit of self-masochism. I'd like to finish up Blood and Tines. That's my extremely big boy. That's my hefty boy. That's my dark fantasy. Kind of an intro into the world that I've created around another novel which I'm also writing. That's Ether Roots. Blood and Tines is the prequel to it, sort of prequel standalone. Outlining a character's ancestors, whereas Ether Roots touches on in the modern day. So I'd like to get those done. Blood and Tines is almost finished. I've got about 20 or so chapters left to write for that. And then Ether Roots getting an entirely new overhaul, and that will kick off. So that's into the future. And then also starting the sequel for Undergrounder, which, is there and has been, I've got the basic outline for it, but I do want Topsider to start, coming more to fruition within the next couple of months.
I love the name Topsider. You really love the story, and so some things that's going to happen in the novel. Because even though that we don't know exactly what's going to happen, we can already have an overview of what's going to happen based on the interview.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So you really gonna do this and then just end the book? Like this is not right. This is not right. It gave me shivers. And then I was like, oh, on to the next chapter. And then there was no next chapter.
You hit the epilogue, that final chapter, and you're like, oh shit, it's to be continued.
Yeah. So what are some other genres you're interested in writing?
I've kind of tapped the genres that I'm really interested in at the moment. I really love urban fantasy, and I really love the blendings of fantasy into more of the modern. So that's my next genre that I want to dive into more heavily. I've really only dabbled in it, so I'd like to go headfirst in it. But Undergrounder was actually, in terms of new genres for me, that was the newest. I'd never written something that was entirely removed from a fantasy element. So, and also because it was mystery, I guess we consider like a mystery romance mix of sci-fi. It's definitely out of my wheelhouse, so I kind of I checked that one off on my list already. So I think I've met my genre goals, or at least expanding into further genres.
So this is a weird question, and I have to be like it. But what was the first book that ever made you cry?
If my memory serves me correctly, which my memory's shit, so I hope it's the one I'm thinking of. It was the third book in the Stephen Lawhead Endless Knot series. It was the ending of that book, and spoiler alert, it was a pretty heavy ending, but yeah, it kind of had the story himself. I mean, Lawhead was I believe he is a religious writer, and though I am myself not religious, I picked up his book and it was fantastic. So in the end of the story, it was very much like a Revelations retelling, where the Earth is remade and remolded, and the main character, the hero, had to sacrifice all in order to get to this point, and he literally watches this world that he's come to love burn and reform, and it's just this gorgeous resetting of the world, but he himself is ripped away from it and thrown back into reality. And it kind of one of those tropes that we were talking about earlier that we love to hate, where it was all just a dream. It wasn't so much a dream for him. It was that he woke up within a couple minutes of passing through the gate that he had originally come through, and then come to find out that he was kicked out of the world and he's now mortal again, and he'll never see his family that he's created. And I just sobbed like a child. Like we gone through this huge journey, and him overcoming so much, and then to lose it all. Yeah, it was just I cried like a baby. Like I still think about it. I'm like, wow, the tears were real.
The tears, they were real. The role of that very I read this in the class book. It was a class book that we had it's really no, it's fifth grade, I think. And it got me because the ending was the main character. And this book is about race and what does race mean and why does humans even have different races. And the main character was African American, and the things that the book does there really was no escaping punishment for this slave. Like there was nothing that they can really do or without a miracle for the slave to escape punishment. So like you had that expectation of something bad was going to happen, but at the same time, when we're so young and grown, we're still reading those happy ever after books that we expected a good outcome. So when the truth hit us that life ain't so easy.
Right, yeah.
It really got a lot of us, and I was literally crying in classroom.
Oh no! At least I could cry in private with mine.
Pretty crier, so I don't think I cry pretty. So,
oh my god, no, I'm not. I'm not a pretty crier, so don't feel bad there. I'm an ugly crier, and I'm also an emotional crier. So if I get mad, I start crying.
Me too. Frustrated, mad, sad.
Yep.
Any emotion I feel intensely, I would cry over it.
Right, and it's so frustrating because you want to be mad at someone. You're like, no, I need to tell you how angry I am, but you're just like, snot coming down your face, and you're like hiccuping and you can't articulate.
Yeah. I think it's really big while reflecting about me at the end of the day, and if I see how to have a not so good day, I'll literally sit there and cry it out. I don't know why.
Oh. You just gotta work through the emotions. No, I get like that crippling sense of like dread and anxiety, where it's like, oh wait, I messed up this one thing. Well, now I need to throw myself out a window. I'll never recover from that.
Never recover, and the next day it's perfectly fine.
Or you're just minding your own business, and then you're like, hey, remember that time 6 years ago where you embarrassed yourself in front of that complete stranger, and you're like, well, into the sun with me.
I'm always hoping that it'll become a romance novel. I'm ready for my Wattpad story.
There you go.
When can we expect the Undergrounder book 2?
Okay. All right, Topsider. It's gonna be a minute. I'm a slow writer. I pay attention to my detail, and I want to get it right before I post it. That's unfortunately the good and bad with Wattpad. The good that you can post it live so people can read and consume it then, but also then you got to write the next installment. And I'm not one of those people who can do just a perfect book or even minorly perfect every 2 weeks with an update. Bi-weekly updates. I need to sit down and think about it and to really map it out to get it to where I need it, so I don't have to go back and make changes, because that's a pain in the butt. If you have to make large plot changes to the story midway through, and you're confusing your readers, and that just makes for no fun. So it's probably going to be a couple of months while I finish up the other 2 on my plate, and then start Topsider. On the plus side for that, I will more than likely be getting a cover for that, professional cover, in the meantime. So, once it launches, it's going to be, all set and ready to go. We're going to have a kick-ass cover. Speaking of that, their Undergrounder is actually getting an updated cover. I'm super excited. To release that out to you all. Are actually doing a phenomenal job. Our girlie is going to be, main stage, full front and center. We get to see, what she looks like, at least, in my mind. might be a little different from what everyone else envisions, but from what my beta readers have seen so far, it's like, oh my god, I'm gay, please take me. But it'll for Topsider, it's gonna be a minute, which is unfortunate. I definitely want to bring that out to you guys as soon as possible, but I would much rather bring you quality.
I know. When it does come out, we'll be going through it. Going through it again.
Right. And also, I want more written, so you're not sitting there every 2 weeks, oh my god, please update, please update. Oh my god, she's saying that it's going to be late. Fuck.
See, I'm a reader of everything. I read manga, I read everything. So, I'm sitting here because these mangas come out a week, every week. And they be, some of them be really good. And then they leave you off at the cliffhanger. And I just be over here I need to take a minute to cry because there ain't no way you gonna do this to me. This can't be legal. I was
right.
thinking,
this is illegal. I need to call the police. This is not. Don't leave me in this emotional state.
Yes, I just again. You go through it all the same thing next week, the next Thursday that it comes out.
It's before the era of, I'm going to date myself, before the era of, Netflix and binge watching, when we had to wait weekly for our, favorite animes to air on Toonami. I had to watch the Frieza saga for DBZ, week by week. It took forever. So, no, I don't want to do that to you all. I definitely want to at least have half the book written before I launch into publishing it on Wattpad. But, you will be the first to know. I'm going to be, blowing that up on all social medias.
What is the funniest comment that you had on social media?
That one's really hard. Oh my god, I've got such weird friends. So, all the time. I think some of the funniest comments I've ever gotten would be from a couple of my beta readers and good friends who go through through the chapters and actually live tweet their reactions to it. So any of the comments that you see in Underground or that are tweeted live are some of my favorite. I think the one off the top of my head that gets me every time I go back and read it and giggle is, I guess, the scene with him when Alex goes down after having dinner with Lee and family, and she brings food. And she brings him, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce it because I am not a Spanish speaker and I don't want to butcher, but essentially Peruvian chicken. Fun fact that Amelia is actually designed off of a good friend of mine from Peru, Pat. And we actually ended up coming up with her name, Pat's borrowed from her family. I'm going to link at that because Pat knows exactly what that means. So I was asking her, what was a good dish, something that you would eat, that reminds you of home, and it brings all these emotions up. And she's like, "Oh, it's this Peruvian dish." And and I guess people just love it that M is like, "I'm going to be over here in a corner having a chicken infused religious experience," and lost their minds over that line, and just the reactions to it is some of the funniest I have ever read. I think it was either that scene or it was when Georgia and Alex are having a talk, and Georgia makes mention that she went through her sock drawer and was poking fun at some of the sizes of the extracurricular activities that Alex likes to do inside. But just Georgia razzing Alex about this and being genuine. I love the reactions on that of, "Oh my god, Georgia, why?"
Funniest for me. Oh, something happens I never have a superpower. So I can get up at 8 or 9. But one night I stared at the reading, and it was so much. I honestly forgot what I did. I ended up looking at one in the afternoon when I went from look at my social media, and I'm being commented on my own book that I had out at the time.
Oh no!
Yeah, I'm commenting on my own stuff, talking about, "Oh my god, I can't believe he just did this."
Oh no!
I don't know why. I don't know how that happened. I don't know. When I started reading my own book, they started commenting on my own stuff. They thinking it really was somebody else's story.
I would have buried myself. That's the last you've seen of me. Under the ground I go.
I swear, anytime I lost it, some things happened I did not remember it.
It's the devil's hour for you. It's clearly you're getting taken over by something.
What?
Do I need to send over a care package?
My best friends, they just slided up on the comments talking about, I really not having conversations with you in your own comments.
Oh my god.
That's it. That is it.
I think, well, I'm trying to think of the conversation between my friends and I that we had recently that pretty much left me in stitches. It's very much an inside joke, but breaking down religious greetings into various forms of cheeses. And I know that that makes absolutely no sense, but it literally started with someone misspelling Holy Jesus to Holy Cheeses, and rolled from there into May the Glue be with you, and oh my god, I think I pretty much sobbed most of the evening. I have very weird friends. We're definitely weird.
If you could be a tree, what would you be?
Oh, that's not a hard question at all. I'd be a whomping willow. Honest. I want to be planted somewhere. I want to grow and look gloomy and droopy, and then if someone dares approach me, I just kick the shit out of them. just leave me be and let me look beautiful from a distance.
I couldn't decide on the tree. I was just like, I don't have a tree that I want to be, because I wouldn't want to be a tree. I wouldn't want to be an insect. I would want to be a butterfly caterpillar. Something. I want to be a tree.
You don't want to be a tree.
Yeah, but ultimately, came to the conclusion that the tree that I want to be. Right name though is the tree in what is the mythology? This Loki.
You want to be Yggdrasil, the world tree.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, my Norse mythology love is coming back.
Because I'm going to be that, because I'm just going to be looking down at everybody. All that I'm just going to be eating my popcorn, just sipping this tea, like looking at these events that's happening.
You're going to have a snake in your roots, and you're going to be like, what the fuck are you doing down there? Please stop swimming.
And one day I'm just going to go, oh, I'm tired of this job. Just fall over everybody.
Everyone dies.
Yeah.
End of the world. There we go. Yggdrasil got tired. Done.
I'm just going to take a nap. I'll be back.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Okay. Next question. If you had to choose hours
I was thinking about that one, and while invisibility would kind of have its its draws into the more nefarious and the illegal, just a snitch, I could definitely use that in certain situations. That's not shady at all. I'm gonna have to pick flight because it seems like it'd be a little bit more practical. Especially if you couldn't turn off the invisibility. I've watched Hollow Man. I've seen Invisible Man. I know how this goes. But then it kind of gets into the nitty gritty of okay, if I can fly, am I going to be wind resistant? So, can I only fly as fast as I can run? Which I don't run unless I'm being chased by something. So.
I was like, you know what? I'm not going to answer this. So I'm going to fit this question out instead. I want the ability to manipulate other ability to be able to do your ability. So I see your ability, I can do that. That way, I can become the god of this world. Like that all about that's so rich.
Holy crap! Oh, you sound like the ether whales from Ether Roots. Oh, you love them.
I'm so cynical. I'm like, I just want to be, I'm going to cleanse all from this world.
Oh my god. Ooh, we're talking on some heavy subjects here. God complexes and things.
Yeah.
If we're just reaching out of what powers we can have, then I might be a Wolverine for a bit. Right? Also, like, I could walk into some really seedy areas and just be like, I don't give a fuck. Shoot me, it's fine. Oh wait, I have these awesome claws in my face.
What was the last gift?
I gifted my wife a pair of moons for Valentine's Day, and I kind of clarified that no, these are not the 90s boots that we used to walk around in snowshoe wise. They were elevated platform boots. Bless my wife, she is a goth. So they were elevated shoes with reflective moon decals on them.
Well, sadly, this is the question.
It is.
Yeah. What are your hobbies?
Holy Lord, loaded question. I have a lot of hobbies. Aside from writing, we'll go ahead and just mix that out. I've said multiple times, in the podcast previously, I'm a prop builder. I love to build movie replicas from different TV series, movies that I enjoy. I do conventions a lot with my wife. I love to sculpt. I love to cast resin. I love carpentry. I do a little bit of table making on the side, leather work, foam work, pretty much anything that involves my hands. So, pardon me. Yeah, anything that's we consider artistic. That's my thing. I've dabbled in drawing. I'm not necessarily all that good. I do like to make I can do people I can sit and draw people from real life, and portrait art. Weirdly, it comes kind of like illustrations now. But the prop building is definitely like my niche. Cosplays with friends. Starting up a new set of cosplays now, even though it's kind of been mixed thanks to COVID. So, but yeah, I love to build. That's my greatest hobby. And my biggest hobby on the side is just creating things with my hands.
So, obviously, this is the end. I'm going to include links and a few other sources, but I'm just going to thank you all for listening.
Yes, thank you all for being by.